everybody, and welcome to this week's installment of Washington Post Story Mode, the show where we discuss the biggest video game news of the week. I'm Washington Post reporter and notably former Kotaku reporter, we'll get to why in a moment, Nathan Grayson. And today we are talking about, and this is the reason I mentioned that, Kotaku and other sites in the Geo Media network going on strike. We are joined by two members of Kotaku who are here today to talk more about that. Let's see. First of all, let's go with oh no, I never know how to do the order for this because it's always like, who am I favoring? Who's the favorite of our
Oh, can I
guests?
can I just step in here? So hi
Can you?
everyone. Yeah, I'm Shannon Liao, also
Mhm.
a video games reporter at the Washington Post.
Wait, and
I
who's
will
your
start
favorite,
off
Shannon?
with my favorite. No, I'm just kidding. We're
Wow,
all. I have to disclose that we're all
allegiance is
friends.
declared.
Okay, well, no, I'm just kidding. But I have to disclose that we're all bitter rivals here. We're all friends, and yeah, this is we have Sisi Jiang. They go by they them, and they're a video games reporter at Kotaku. Right? Say hello.
Hi. Sorry,
And
this
then
was
also, I'm going to take the other introduction because the intros were stolen from me in an act of subterfuge.
Hmm.
We also have Ethan Gatch. Say hi, Ethan.
Hello, it's good to be back.
It's good to have you back. Ethan's been on the show a few times. Cece's also been on the show before, so we both of you are now part of the Washington Post Story Mode Extended Universe, which is a great honor. So I'm sure that y'all are thrilled about that.
Do I get royalties?
We're the better Netflix version of the cinematic you.
You're inside our metaverse, so I don't know.
Whoa.
Do you own property in the metaverse?
I want royalties.
CC
Okay.
doesn't want property; they just want money.
I will write that. I will write your request down. I'll get back to you.
Cool.
Fantastic. Okay, so obviously it has been a very eventful week for y'all, to say the least. So I mean, like going into this, because I think that probably a fair number of people understand kind of what's going on here, but obviously y'all are on strike. And so I just thought that for people who maybe aren't as familiar with the situation, we could do some background. So like, how did we get here? How did we get to a point where, I mean, this is what, one of the first, is this the first like major media network strike of this nature ever? Like at least in
I
terms of unions?
yes, we are the first ongoing digital media strike, which means that there's no set end date until we simply get our contract. So,
And so what are the terms that you're seeking and what sort of like led to here? Because you were, obviously bargaining for a while. And so how did we get to this point where now you feel it's necessary to go on strike?
sorry, it's kind of hard to tell who you're asking.
I mean, both of you, either of you, whoever wants to reply. We're all
Yeah,
having
Cece,
fun
why
here.
don't you go first?
I go first?
Yeah, or I
Okay.
can.
Or I mean,
Rock, paper,
Uh, so-
scissors for it.
So I'll start, and then Cece can hop in.
Mhm.
This started. Our contract was set to expire February the midnight after February 28th, so the beginning of March. And we've been bargaining for several weeks now, trying to on a number of different economic proposals and other things. And there was not a lot of progress made. Management delayed constantly, was not similar to anyone who's been following the Major League Baseball strike. It didn't, management didn't give the impression that they were ready to seriously deal. And so once the contract expired, we'd be forced to work without a contract. And now we're on strike basically for a number of different issues. There's work from home right now, trying to have flexibility codified in the contract for people with COVID and everything else, that they can work with their manager to take time to work remotely when they need it. There's trans inclusive healthcare, making sure that our healthcare is not just affordable, but it's equal for everyone on staff, and that there's not this sort of dual tier system. And then there's very meat and potato stuff of just pay, making sure that everyone's pay is competitive, that we're getting annual cost of living raises, and we're getting better salary minimums. It's I think anyone else who's like lives anywhere, if you pay your utilities and you go out and you shop for food, like inflation can kind of be a very theoretical thing, but I think everyone now feels like, oh yes, there is inflation in the world. Prices for various things have gone up. My pay needs to go up. Otherwise, I'm taking a pay cut, And so it's a matter of, are you being paid fairly for the work you're doing, or are you not? And so that's why that's why we're at this impasse at the moment.
Mhm.
So that's a very interesting question. Is like inflation, I think, increased by 7% or so. Do you think that if you're not getting what you requested, would you be taking a 7% pay cut, or kind of how much of a raise would you be getting if you don't win your contract?
Um, okay, just want to add that it's
Mhm.
not theoretical that low pay is hurting us. It is actual that people are that people have left, because like it's not really like competitive right now, relative to other media companies, and it is frankly the most demoralizing thing in the world to watch people you like leave your workplace. So this is not like theoretical, like I like yes, the numbers are important, like obviously like I have to pay New York rent, but it's also very like on a day-to-day impactful, is that it's like immediately feeling that like other people are not getting what they deserve.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that, in the interest of kind of going into some depth with that, just because like, I think that it helps when people can kind of see salaries, but people have been like sharing, the amount of salary that they get. And also like I think what you've set goals in terms of how much money you're raising for striking workers that are like in line with what each tier of kind of people in editorial at Geo Media make. And so like entry level is like 55K. And then like
Um,
mm,
Sorry. I just wanted to clarify that it depends, and for
mhm,
a lot of people, it's actually starts at 58.5
okay.
because there's some kind of weird complication where if it's too low, they'd have to pay us overtime, and paying overtime to journalists, you're going to accumulate a lot of overtime pay if they did pay
Mhm,
us for overtime. So, and for a lot of people, it's actually 58.5, which is still, kind of
mhm,
rough to like find affordable housing on in New York City, where a lot of people have been forced to relocate. Um, and we've seen what happened to the AV Club when they were just one day suddenly forced to move to California, and like so many people said no, and now the AV Club, we've seen what happened to them, and we're just trying to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else, which is it's just like the whole pay thing, the relocation thing. A lot of these problems we've been having are very intertwined.
mhm. Right. And yeah, for viewers who may not be familiar, so the AV Club is also part of the Geo Media Network. They're a multimedia website. They cover movies, TV, music, and stuff like that. And recently, Geo Media basically said to a lot of the people who worked there, who were based in Chicago, like, "Hey, we want you to relocate to LA, and you have until I believe like beginning of March, so actually very soon, to do so." Um, and a lot of them didn't want to, in part because they weren't going to have their like cost of living or like moving fees paid in any way. So like they'd be working for the same salary, but in LA, which is a very pricey city. So most of them, like I think 7 of them, just quit because they didn't really have a choice. Um, so that it's a very like tangible kind of outcome that can arise from these sorts of contracts is like they Geo Media's done it. It's not just like a theoretical. It's happened. Um, but yeah, so like with all of that in mind, I now have to obligatorily read a statement from Geo Media because they've responded to this, um, and so they've made some arguments around these things. I'm going to include the top part too because it seems pertinent. So a spokesperson for GeoMedia said to us that GeoMedia does in fact offer an inclusive and robust healthcare benefits package that includes transgender slash gender dysmorphia slash gender affirming policy that follows WPATH standards of care. And then also Jim Spanfeller, who is the CEO of GeoMedia, put out a memo. This was an internal company memo that I'm assuming y'all saw. But yeah, for the viewers at home, he said, on behalf of the entire leadership team at GeoMedia, I'm disappointed we could not come to terms on the current GMG Union contract. We bargained in good faith up until the deadline late last night, which was that was Monday night, when the union voted to cut off talks and strike. To be clear, the terms we offer the GMG Union were not only equivalent to, but in some instances better than, terms agreed to by the Onion Union, GMG's sister union, which includes the AV Club, just 1 year ago. We are struggling to understand why terms agreed to by half the editorial union members last year are not acceptable to the other half now. Unfortunately, that puts Geo Media in an untenable position with regard to these current negotiations. Disagreements between unions and management are nothing new, and I'm hopefully we'll find a middle ground soon. We invite the GMG Union to return to the bargaining table so that we may reach a deal that satisfies its members while enabling Geo to operate profitably. The simple truth is that my role, along with my colleagues in leadership at Geo, is to balance the needs of all our employees with the needs of the business to set us all up for success, not just those in the GMG Union. Fortunately, our contract with the union established a workable framework for that success, so I know it is achievable. Anyway, that is a lot of stuff. What was kind of your what is kind of your response to, I guess, that statement, and especially some of the ways that I think it reframes some of what you two were just talking about?
Yeah, so I just want to hop in real quick. Yeah, so three big things from my point of view. One, people, there's because of unions in this country over the past 50, 40 years, there's not a lot of literacy around like how labor action works and other stuff. And striking means you withhold your labor from work. It doesn't mean that you stop bargaining, you cut off talks. So that's all. The position of the union is always that we're happy to like make progress on our demands and get the contract. Like that's what this is about. It's getting to the fair contract. It's not about trying to run away. If anyone's running away, it's Geo Media, who is coincidentally tomorrow, on the day of our big rally, recently announced that it'll be a remote work day because of construction in the building. The two other things, you mentioned, or he mentions the Onion contract and his statement, and you basically answered that question earlier, where first of all, while we serve under the same company, we're organized under two different contracts. So one thing that happens a lot in labor disputes is there's this sort of management will like to say, well, you look at all these other people, you have it better than them. So what are you complaining about? When you're bargaining, you're always bargaining specifically on your own terms of what the work you do and your position within the company and what you should be getting from that. And so, we're bargaining when we come to the table, we're bargaining from where our contract, the GMG Union contract, which has historically been stronger than the Onion contract. And so we're using that as a baseline. And you mentioned AV Club basically being blown up because of this forced relocation. One of the things we're trying to codify is that people who are currently remote will not at some point in the future be forcibly relocated to the New York office or anywhere else. Currently, we're grandfathered in as remote being fine, even though there's currently a relocation requirement for new employees. But for some reason, management doesn't want to agree to just codify that in the contract and give that assurance. And I don't know how anyone looking at the AV Club situation could say that just having a handshake is good enough on that. And then the third thing was what were the points that you were just going through?
Let's see. What are the additional points? Was talking about.
I mean, so he said that they offer WPATH standards of care, which if that's what we want, and so if that's what you want to put in the contract and codify it, great. And so if they don't disagree on that, then that's good to hear. That hasn't been the position in bargaining yet, though. So, and then the other thing is, this is, the contract negotiations are always tough because no one wants to not do their work. Like that's why we're there. Like I think one of the most surprising things about striking is just remembering how much you love the work and how much you actually want to do it. And it's like, it's not people walking away. Like striking is always a last resort, and so it's nothing that anyone does lightly. And it's not, if things were as rosy as Jim would like to paint them, then no one would have done this in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, Ethan, you're giving up.
Sorry. I've seen people sharing tweets this week of the things they wish they could be writing about.
Yeah, and I'm curious. You were talking about
One
relocating. Sisi, you had to relocate, right? So what was that kind of like for you?
Okay, first of all, I just want to add, Ethan, I appreciate that you're giving up Destiny 2 Witch Queen blogs for this.
Yeah, see, here we go.
This must hurt you so much, you and your Destiny blogs, which I enjoy
And it's
reading
one
despite
about
not. Yeah.
it's one about Hamburger Helper, which is, I mean, the world needs this. The
Yeah,
world is
exactly.
calling out, and
Anyway,
yet Ethan
relocation.
cannot answer the call.
I can speak for Newtaku, which is like the people who got hired on this fall when there was a huge hiring spree in Kotaku. And relocation was such a big pain point for everyone who had to relocate. We were scrambling. A lot of people 2 weeks. We were like, how do I find an apartment in the New York City within 2 weeks that will accept the salary? Because as I tweeted earlier this week, like, landlords need to make sure you earn enough money for them to agree to rent to you, because in New York City, tenant laws are very strict. They protect tenants quite a lot more than in other places. So landlords will be very strict about vetting to make sure that you are wealthy enough to live there. Which a lot of us were just like, who will accept us? Like, every single person relocated was like, okay, how do I get an apartment? Because this is really, like, really hard. And also, we were offered no relocation, so everyone, a lot of people, like, had to really struggle financially to figure out how to move themselves from a totally different state to New York City, one of the most expensive places to live in America. And this is something I went through. This is something every, like, relocated person had to go through. And it was not fun. It was extremely demoralizing to, like, figure out how to be a new staffer and also deal with games journalism and like write specifically for Kotaku while you were not really sure if you were permanently going to be permanently housed a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. So I personally had to dip into my freelancing fund to, like, pay for all the relocation expenses. And I talked to some of my peers from other media organizations, and they were shocked. They were like, what do you mean you didn't get relocation? I'm like, that's what it sounds like. I did not get relocation. Nobody else did. Yeah, and like, while while we were just still trying to learn the job, we were all just like, huh, wonder if I'll have a place to live yet. So there's that.
Oh, so you didn't get like reimbursed for how much you had to pay, like for your relocation expenses, is what you're saying?
You get relocation reimbursement?
Yeah.
Wow, Washington Post is rolling in money.
Whoa. I mean,
Whoa, are you telling me this is normal?
Weird.
Sorry.
And
Yeah.
wait, and then you're asking for that to be codified? I don't know, sounds
Oh, no,
unreasonable.
that was
Okay,
not
you're
one
not
of the
asking
part.
even for that.
It's just one of the things that have made our jobs harder. Like,
Right.
the first blogs you write are always like, wow, I have to learn the Kotaku house style. I have to learn how to navigate people having strong emotional responses to our work. And also, in the meantime, I am still living out of a hotel, so that I'm paying for myself. So there's that.
Right. Yeah. To quickly hit some questions that I see popping up in chat. So somebody asked how many people, 7 out of how many at the AV club quit. I think it was like, that's a significant chunk of the staff. And like, it includes a lot of people who were there for, like nearly a decade. It's like senior level people. Yeah, let's see. Employees include managing editor, TV editor, film editor, associate editor, senior writer, assistant editor, and editorial coordinator. The AV club community is basically treating it as like, goodbye, everyone. Like the site's starting over. Let's see. And then also one for y'all before because I want to get into like picket line stuff in a moment. But Kyle Orland, who is actually a fellow journalist, and I imagine you guys know of him, said, Ari, all the stuff you wish you were blogging about. Any thoughts on writing a strike blog on a separate web space to keep some level of coverage going and showing Geo what they're missing?
It's something I've definitely thought about, and it's something that, like, balancing it, with the other work of like I mean, CC's out picketing, and like that's a ton of work.
Mhm.
It is.
like striking itself is, if you want to, like, make keep up the drum beat, and it's a lot of work to organize and to get everyone on the same page and support, and trying to set up Twitch streams and other stuff. So it's definitely something that I would love to personally do. It's something that we'll definitely talk about, but it's also balancing that work with the work of trying to do the strike and raise the strike fund and keep the message and going and reaching out to other media, and
Mhm.
it's more draining than I ever thought it would be. It's both
Exhausting.
been super exciting, but also very draining.
Worth pointing out, you're doing this stream right now, right? That's also part of it.
Yep, it is indeed. Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Cece, you personally have been on the picket line.
I just
What
got
is
back an hour ago.
Well, thank you for joining us despite, doing that work. I guess my question is just like to begin, sort of what is the general like mood and morale like over there? How are people kind of, you know, how are people reacting to this entire
Mhm.
very unprecedented situation?
Of course. Okay, so for full context, we were all still working on Monday. Tuesdays when the strike started. I've been on the picket line since Tuesday, every single day. I usually go for 6 hours. Today I went for 3 because I have to come back, be on the launcher stream. So I've been there. Sorry, I'm like math. 9 hours? Yeah, okay, 9 hours this week. Um, and morale is extremely high. Don't let my exhausted face fool you. It's just that like my kneecaps are about to give out like any day now. But otherwise, I'm pretty shocked that even though we are functionally out of work for the unforeseeable future, and also it's kind of scary that, like our healthcare is not guaranteed while we're on strike. And also, like, again, we don't know when any of this is ending. People are actually like, morale is extremely high. I think there's just been a lot of frustration about about how workers have been treated for a very long time. I mean, I've only been here for like 6 months, like
Mhm.
ish. So, but like, it's just like me coming in and like observing people. It's like feel like it's very cathartic for a lot of folks who are like, finally, we're taking a hard line in the sand that this is what is acceptable for our newsroom, and this is what's not acceptable for the newsroom, and um and honestly, this is like the first time I've really gotten to know other people in the union, because normally we work kind of separately, especially when so much of our work has been remote due to COVID. And even when we're in the office, I'm just like, who are these people? I don't know them, but I have a blog to write, so I'm gonna go back to my desk now. But I have met more like people from the company in the past week than I have in like the past 6 months. So there's a lot of like suddenly like feeling like, oh, you're part of the greater website like company, like the bigger company and not just Kotaku specific. So yeah, it's just been like, wow, there's some really cool people who work here that I never would have met if we hadn't voted to go on strike. uh, and so um right now, um as of 3 o'clock today, it seems like the strategy right now has been to be a public noise complaint so that other businesses in the building will complain to the company that your striking employees are being very noisy. So it's been kind of mixed. Like on one hand, we got heckled by this guy who was like, "You're killing New York,"
Really?
and some other guy who was like, "People are dying out there," which I'm like, yeah, but
Man,
it
I
doesn't
knew
you
New
can't.
York
Can I
felt a little
just
bit more killed recently. Like I
can I
went
just
outside yesterday and I was like, why does everything feel like it's
But
been murdered?
But we got a lot of honks. We got a lot of honking going on from the pro union crowd, especially a lot of like a lot of trucks and a lot of MTA. MTA's been really coming in clutch for us. Like I am to ride the bus like 5 times more this year than I did last year. Like MTA supports us, and we should support the MTA. I've just become a raging numbtot overnight. Like heck yeah, MTA. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, first of all, like as like a native New Yorker, getting heckled on the street. I used to like deliver newspapers, like hand them out on the street, and
Mhm.
then people would just heckle me for no reason. So like I'm with
Oh.
you on that. Being pro MTA, I'm not with you on that. I cannot support that.
Wow. Once again, going back to y'all's long-spanning rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really rough. But yeah, that sort of does feed into my next question. It's just like, how has it been out there? Like, it sounds like you are receiving a decent amount of support. Do people seem to like sort of understand what the stakes are? Because I feel like this is one of those things where, there are a lot of strikes where they will definitely get attention. People will come and be like, "What's
Mhm,
going
mhm,
on? I
mhm.
want to, know what this is about." But like these are things that on one hand I think like the demands that you are making obviously are like fair, but on the other hand like they're fairly nuanced. And so
Hmm.
like do people approaching a picket line who, maybe don't like are otherwise uninitiated, like are they coming away being like, "Oh yeah, I get it. Okay, yeah, like I'm down to support this." So they're like, "Okay, well I saw a line outside today."
Well, I mean, a lot of we've given away like hundreds of flyers, so at least people are like care that figure out what the heck is going on.
Mhm.
First of all, I wanted to say that just to clarify, our office is in Midtown, so it's a very like it's not a working class neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like it's Midtown, New
Mhm.
York, in Manhattan. So you get a lot of like corporate like office types who are looking at this like those kids need to, to like sit down, kind of like at least that's the vibe I'm getting from being on the street,
Yeah,
Mhm.
midtown types being like, what are they
as they push
doing?
their Amex on the worker behind the cashier, giving them their lunch.
I mean, the other thing
Um,
is, like, I used to live in Midtown. There's always a protest going on, especially like United Nations. There's always like some kind of like world conflict and people on the street picketing for something or
mhm.
another. So I guess they probably just assume you're one of these other groups.
Yeah. And also, um, about the stakes, which honestly, I think people like, yeah, it's hard to communicate nuance of the whole situation, especially since our situation is not exactly new, and it's like, just in a lot of like bullet points about the whole like that's not so straightforward. So there is that challenge. However, I still believe, and I think, okay, this is like my perspective as someone who never went to journalism school, as someone who didn't even think I was going to become a journalist until like last year, as someone who is a like frankly non-binary immigrant who like totally who like does not have the background of like, my dad was a journalist, and no, my dad didn't do that. So as someone who's like totally new coming to this with fresh eyes and seeing this as something that's obviously very newsworthy, and then seeing that like maybe like people don't know how to talk about it, and I'm just here to say that it should be more talked about because the websites have millions of viewers, and this is how people consume information. This is how people get news about the world around them, and our working conditions define the quality of the news output, because I think there's a culture around journalism that's very like it's objective scientific truth, and we don't really it's very uncomfortable to acknowledge a news is produced by humans because humans are fallible. Humans are like they're not perfect machines, and news is one of those things you can't automate. You have to have humans do them. So it's actually a reporter's ability to get healthcare directly impacts the quality of the news that they're putting out. Their ability to get childcare affects what kind of sources they are able to talk to. And so all of these things are not unrelated to like, like the rampant like the misinformation age we live through, and why this matters even if you don't read our websites, because a lot of people read our websites. They are changed by the news that we put out there, the perspectives, the editorial that we are putting out there. So, like, even if you don't read us, we are still affecting the world around you. And this is a fight not just to raise our salaries. This is a fight to save a newsroom, as opposed to like something that is for like private equity to simply make money off of. We are, because like Kotaku, look, okay, like Ethan couldn't corroborate this, but like Kotaku, I was just really surprised when I first came in, because like people care so much. People care so much about, is this good quality news, is this good content that is relevant to your viewers, does it enrich their lives in some way, is it something that is meaningful to them, is it good nutritious news? And that is a conversation we are constantly having. And if you don't pay to keep the people who care about those things, then you're going to have a less good newsroom. Yeah, sorry, that was like a whole spiel. Go
Amen. That was
take it
that
away.
was that was brilliant. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I will just say on the nuance part, like, we just mentioned private equity. I think the part that really carries through and people just kind of intuitively get, ever since like at least 2008 and probably before then, is just, uh, you know, they want to pay us less and take away our healthcare protections. And uh, we're owned by private equity that just announced last month that they are flush with billions in cash. We're effectively a rounding error. That our asks are a rounding error on whatever spreadsheet the middle manager is cooking up for their meeting. So it's like, you look at those things and you just say, there's no reason we can't get a fair contract. We can't get it now. We can't move ahead and just go back to doing the work that we love, that the readers love, and that I think is, to Cece's point, enriches like, the the conversation around games and media and internet culture, in a way that I'm obviously biased, but that in a way that I don't think that anyone else is duplicating.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the private equity thing a little bit, because I think that that also covers a lot of what's happening here. I mean, again, disclosure for people who weren't around earlier, I used to work at Kotaku, so I saw a lot of this firsthand. Um, but yeah, I mean, like when Great Hill, the private equity company that currently owns this network of sites, took over and kind of established Geo Media and all of this, like things at the sites changed pretty markedly, like over time, at least in terms of like how management and editorial interacts. And there was a very famous Deadspin post about this right before basically everybody who worked at Deadspin at the time quit simultaneously. That was called Adults in the Room. And they talked a lot about this kind of like acrimonious relationship where, on one hand, you have editorial people who are very smart and good at their jobs and understand how to sort of, make their work get in front of eyeballs, because that's a part of the job these days. Like, it's not just writing stuff, it's also understanding angles and packaging and like just how to ensure that the greatest number of people read what you write, which I think is something that people at Geo Media are trained to be especially savvy at. Um, but then on the other hand, you have people in management who just took over these sites, and who've now been in charge of them for the past few years, um, who are like, well, no, we're just going to do it our way. And like that's where the phrase "adults in the room" came from. It's like they believe they're the adults in the room. They believe they understand even better than the people who do the job. And so, I mean, like, can y'all talk at all about, like, again, sort of what brought us here with regards to that relationship in terms of kind of how over time things have fragmented? Like, this isn't just out of nowhere, right? This is the culmination of, I think, years of kind of, a strained relationship.
I'll say, there are very strained relationships out there. Um, as the record will show, a lot of those people left the company either through their own volition or because they were forced out, or chased out. And so, while there's definitely been tension between management and the union for some time, I think really this moment, it might not appear that way on the outside for a lot of people, but this moment really speaks to how much current people at the sites in the unit who don't necessarily even have that baggage, but are coming in and saying and seeing like, hey, I'm making, my minimum is 55 remote, or it's 58 in New York, and my friend, who we have the same level of experience, and our past editors and whoever speak just as highly of us, and they're making 65 or 70, or they have better health benefits, or they're not, someone at Vice or at Vox isn't trying to come in and say, actually, we want to just strip out all protections for your healthcare so that we can just determine whatever it is every year willy-nilly. So I think I honestly, I think a lot of the big push behind this current strike is, it's people who are coming not necessarily with that baggage, but just looking at the numbers and at the asks and saying like, this is unacceptable. Like, for the caliber of our sites and what we produce and who our competition is, this is, to Cece's point, like that's how you lose talent. That's how you struggle to recruit new talent, because what you do is being a brilliant site with great people, you train people, people learn a lot, and then all of a sudden they get poached by someone else because someone else is willing to pay them what they're worth. And so without that, it just you become just a feeder for other companies. And so I think really this moment speaks to just how much the company is resisting on these very basic things that our competition isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that that's in the room and the thumbnail for that article, which we shouldn't look at, or people are not looking at now because
Yeah,
of
because that'd be crossing the picket line. I
of
tried
the
to pull
picket
it up
line.
without crossing the picket line, but
Right, right.
I
And the
failed.
photo for that is from Succession, and like Succession's like third season just aired, and it was the show itself is about these for wealthy people deciding what happens to media companies and kind of without understanding how media works, and then just kind of like encouraging people to not unionize so they can just quickly shut down the company. I think that was like one of the that was like the scene where that thumbnail for that article from Deadspin
Mm-hmm.
comes from.
Yeah, sure enough. Um, so yeah, I
Well,
mean,
I'm
like,
sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I'd be remiss if I didn't just mention that during the picket yesterday,
Oh,
Geo
that
Media
thing.
sent donuts over to the picket line,
Oh,
which I don't know who's been watching Succession and whatnot, but that was, we'd love to have them come and offer us a fair contract, but instead they sent over Duncan.
dang. Yeah, I feel like that's it at least feels a little bit, what's the word? Uh, it feels like they are not treating you seriously in that case.
I was
Um,
watching a historical drama where they were giving macaroons to the soldiers, so that's what I thought of as you're
eh,
talking about that. Okay, but
yeah, patronizing, that's the word I was looking for. Anyway, yeah, also Chase in chat just said talking about wages and comparing is important. The only people concerned about keeping wages secret are those that want to take advantage of you and obfuscate your true worth. Which, yeah, I agree with that. I think that is pretty on the money. Haha, a joke. Um, but yeah, so I mean, obviously at this point, y'all have been out there for a few days, and again, what kind of makes this whole situation unprecedented is that there's not really an end in sight here. Obviously, y'all would like to go back to y'all would like to bargain in good faith and all of that, and get a fair contract. But there's no telling when that will happen, and in the meantime, you're just getting donuts. Um, in any case, like, what kind of happens now? Like, how do you kind of keep the momentum going, and then also just like maintain this? Because again, it's work, and people need to get paid. They need to be able to take care of themselves. So like, where does all of this go in if this continues? The coming days and weeks, even.
I can speak to frontline strategy. Anyway, so obviously right now our main focus is trying to raise strike funds on GoFundMe because right now people are giving up their paychecks to make a point to management. And in the meantime, we still live in New York City. And we have to pay rent and food and childcare for people who are like who like need someone to take care of their kids while they're on the picket line. So right now, like we're trying, like basically right now it is basically a fight of attrition. Who can outlast the other? Can we keep going with no paycheck, or will management cave first because bad press, because they're not making like as much money while we're on strike? And so like right now, like our big foundational strategy is just staying. I was just like wearing, like saying we can outlast the other, and and also the frontline strategy today is that we are putting, like, obviously I mentioned the noise complaint strategy, but we also are trying to escalate. We are still trying to push escalate Great Hill Partners, which is the private equity firm that the CEO actually answers to, because I think right now we're thinking that they might be easier to press with bad media attention, and because yeah, it's just I
Because they can afford to just make it all go away.
Hmm.
They could sell
Right,
one of
right,
their
with their
wristwatches and it
billions.
would just go away.
Hmm.
yeah, we're trying to be annoying enough so that they will want this whole situation to go away. Personally, I am praying that we just get sold again, but I'm just like, please just sell us. Um, but yeah, we're trying to make this into a situation that is impossible to ignore, and we are very hard to ignore because people are screaming their lungs out. I lost my voice last night. Um, and we are like, it's a picket line from around 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is around the time that like people like work, and so we've been also like just like trying. We've been also like wiring and making sure that people know about why we are out here freezing to death, losing our kneecaps. Um, yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, Ethan, if you want to add anything, feel free. But also to point out that in chat, Elise just said that you should think of the poor billionaires. You need to keep them in mind.
I've
Yeah,
been forced to think of the poor billionaires for far
right?
too
No, yeah,
long.
exactly. Like I'm tired of thinking about these people. I just want to write the blogs. I just want to do what we're good at. Have people come to the
Yeah.
site. You sell the ads. We're all happy. I mean, like I said, like Cece was expressing earlier, I've been taken aback by just the level of excitement, passion, and just sort of like the coming together of coworkers from across different sites in a way that you don't normally get, especially with COVID and having been remote for so long. This is kind of like the first time in a couple of years where I think people have felt so like connected and like they have each other's backs and like, you know, we're part of not just our own site, but this greater network of sites that have a common editorial ethos and mission and standard. And the picketing has been really big this week. We've got a big rally tomorrow. We're doing Twitch streams, Instagram lives. We'll to Kyle's point. I'm sure as time goes on, if they don't give us a fair contract, we'll look into doing some sort of Kotaku on Strike blog or something else to continue doing what we're good at and showing that we're the site. Like the site is us. We're the people who make it. It's not just a name that you can put a tabla under and just like have random farm content. So hopefully they realize that.
Yeah, I wanted to add, having come off the picket line for like, shit, what's it, 3 days? Okay, sorry, I'm like losing track of how many days it's been. So it's after having been on the picket line for 3 days, I was really shocked with the momentum because my legs are exhausted. They're like permanently exhausted. I was surprised that we are not losing momentum after the first couple of days because once again, COVID is out there and we are freezing. We are freezing to death. Our legs are dropping off, and we are like also like we're putting ourselves out there, and like we are bloggers, not marchers, and but we have become marchers because because of how bad the situation has gotten. And I was just thinking about how, like, my impression, this is my personal opinion, my impression is that I don't think that management took us seriously. I don't think they were expecting us to even last this long. Like, this is my impression. And I was just thinking about like how like really like the energy out there on the picket line, like regardless if it's 10 people or if it's 20 people, the energy just does not subside. People are very like energetic about getting us our fair contract. And I was just thinking about how this is something that I think the executive types could never understand because we care about each other. Like, this is our fight, and we're fighting because we want to save like the newsroom that I know we can be. And this is something that like I don't think the people who manage us could like really like empathize with or understand. And like if they understood any of this, and then they would have given our contract last week.
Yeah, so it's interesting you talk about the timeline because I just looked this up to just double check. But like 2019, I left Fox Media. They also were going through union stuff. They also launched a strike actually when I was gone in June, and they did the strike for 3 days, and then they signed a fair contract with management. They finally got what they wanted. Are you surprised that it's taken so long? It's already been 3 days, and you haven't heard anything back from management for either
To
of
be
you?
honest, after seeing how bargaining just dragged on for weeks and weeks and weeks, I don't think anyone was so like optimistic to think it was gonna be over in 2 days. Like, we've seen how bargaining went. I've sat through all the bargaining debrief meetings. So the like unfortunately like we're just like mentally prepared ourselves like this is gonna be a while. Like, if they respected us, this would have been over at the bargaining table like weeks ago. So we're just kind of like, yeah, I guess we're out here for a while.
Nothing management could do would shock me at this point. And I hit that point long ago. And I'll say that that this is really about establishing that we can be equal partners in this venture, and that the company will be better for it if they pursue that path, then as opposed to trying to you know stick their head in the sand and drag their feet and on extremely modest proposals.
Hmm. Yeah, speaking of equal partners, James Jackson in chat just said time for Defector to launch a video games vertical. Which if only, what a world that would be. Also, Anne Brannigan says GMG Union forever and hi Ethan. So
Oh, no hi for me. I see how it is.
Oh,
wait, sorry,
everyone say
who
hi
are
to
you?
Cece. Oh
How
my
did
god.
you get here?
I broke into the launcher stream.
Yeah, that's impressive. You have to tell us how so that we can prevent it in the future.
I say I'm sorry. I know like people like just this is dragging on, but I will say the other thing is just it's been really heartening just to see all the people who have cycled out of GMG over the years, just like how supportive they've been and excited, and just some of the biggest supporters for the strike fund are just past coworkers, people who like I know are not like swimming in cash, and clearly like this is just something that they believe in and feel strongly about and want to see, because a successful strike action, it doesn't just help us, it helps every newsroom, it helps workers in general, just like seeing that people can withhold their labor and successfully bargain for something better than what they were being offered.
Mhm. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean that's been one thing that I've definitely seen a lot of is all the other various unions and other sort of similar entities coming out in support of this and being like, yeah, give them a fair contract, which I think is, an element of unions that is, if not under discussed, then at least understood. That like it's not just individual units bargaining for like their members' rights or what their members want. It's not like it's not that selfish of a motivation. It's like all of them work together in order to make something better for workers in general, not just workers in a specific sector or at a specific company. Um,
Yeah, it's worth noting the scale of all of this, right? It's not just your newsroom, and Kotaku is also like Jalopnik, Jezebel, Lifehacker, etc., and all the other ones, Gizmodo, and then also, your union is part of like the greater union of the Writers Guild of America East, which also includes not just like journalists but like other kinds of writers. So
mhm. And then yeah, we just got a question in chat for both of you. So James asks, your EIC, Patricia, was a staff editor for Kotaku a while back. What response, if any, has she had to you all concerning this? I mean, she's part of the strike, right? Because
Well,
of
so
the
one
Yeah.
of the
way that
special, yeah,
GMG
one of the special
handles.
things about our union is that editor in chiefs are in our union, and I mean, that's just been, I don't know, it's a very special and unique thing for us, but obviously Patricia is been extremely supportive and on the front lines of doing everything because she all of our interests are aligned in this, and that's always a tactic, is to try and pit workers against each other, especially managers and middle managers against their direct reports, but that's not an issue with us.
Yeah, because obviously, like, we would like to, like, always have more people on the Kotaku team, and it's hard to do that if your salary minimums are untenable for being forcibly relocated to New York City. So Patricia understands very well that salary minimums are part of what will make a Kotaku a better site.
Mm, yeah, yeah, no, and I mean, I think that is pretty clearly her goal given her job. Um, so let's see. I mean, I think that we've covered pretty much everything with regards to the strike. That said, if there's anything that y'all would like to add that you haven't already expressed, feel free.
Donate to our strike fund.
No, I'll just say, me personally, it just it's been uh a great experience just to see, just to like work with everyone in a different capacity on something else, as a last resort, because I really would like to be I want to be reviewing Destiny, I want to be writing my labor pieces about other companies, and writing about Pokemon and stuff. So
I'm so upset I missed Triangle Strategy Reviews season because
well,
of this.
Nintendo wasn't going to give us that anyway, so
That's true. Well, I mean, if
Dang.
I have to miss the next Genshin patch because of this whole situation, I'm gonna be so mad.
Yeah, no. So think about that, Jim Spanfeller. That's on your shoulders.
Yeah, the
Season
next
might
Genshin
miss the Genshin
impression.
patch. Ethan has already missed a Destiny expansion. Things are dire.
the raids out this weekend. Should I
uh-uh.
even bother?
Wow.
No, it's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will
Jim
bother.
Spanfeller sitting in his office being like, I don't know if the raid is good and I need to know. What have I done?
Yeah,
And
Ethan.
he has to ratify the contract at that point because of he has to find out.
Yeah, Ethan has to support the strike instead of playing Destiny in the expansion.
And that's
Wait,
the
but
saddest thing, Paul.
But Ethan, you raised a good point, which is that you've been covering Activision Blizzard SFI and CCN, Ethan. So I don't know if you have thoughts
I
of
thought
like.
you more thoroughly, I think, than anyone probably. So
Oh, well, thank you.
not to
I
include yourself
agree.
in our lower sphere.
No. I just kind of meant like you're covering unions, and now you're striking after covering the strike. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts of like how life seems to copy itself, or I don't know.
Life comes at you so fast.
It does. I think there's a lot of people, especially in the gaming space, which can be somewhat, more progressive and out there in some ways, but more conservative in others. I think there's a sense that that labor is somehow, or like unionizing and striking is somehow like picking a side, or is like a politicized issue. And I think obviously like the bargaining is like, negotiating a contract is part of the whole point of the process, is that you leave it to those two sides to figure out, use their leverage to come to what they think is an agreeable contract. But like striking in general, unionizing in general, I think is, no one second guesses that people should have the right to vote, or should have, a political say in how their life is run or how their government is structured. And I similarly don't think it's radical at all to be like you should have a say in how your economy, your business is structured, what your role in it is. And it's people laugh at like the idea of having autocrats or monarchs, and it's like that's what a boss is. That's what a private equity company running your company is. So I think it's, on the one hand, it's like it feels like you're becoming the story, but on the other hand, it's like this is just like a sort of basic fundamental right that like people need to exercise. But otherwise, it will because the less you exercise it, the harder it gets for other people too.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, we're the reason that Kotaku is a good site. Like, I can't like we have so many meetings about how to make Kotaku a better site, and we know like Patricia is so smart. I came here to work and I was like, oh my god, Patricia is really killing it with knowing how to make our stories really like be read by more people, because a story is like it doesn't matter how good the story is if nobody wants to click on it or like read it, or and it's this expertise honed from being in newsrooms for like years and years and years, that it makes Kotaku a successful site. And I just think the smartest people who are like good at making Kotaku a readable site should be the ones that have more deciding like say, and that includes like not just Patricia, but like all of us who have like who are very smart at making good articles, good blogs. And we should be the ones who are telling who are trying to who determine like how like the workplace should be.
I don't know. I think that makes a little too much sense. In any case, I think maybe now might be time to move on to talking about some of the other stories of the week. We're in a bit of a twist on our usual formula. I think that Ethan and Cece are going to join us for that because, they are also experts in this stuff. And it is not like they can go work on their regular site right now, unfortunately. So, if you're not convinced already that they are darn good at their jobs, well, now you get a firsthand view of that
Yeah,
happening.
we're very lucky to have both of you here, so you can
Yeah.
give us your expertise on these
Yeah.
news events of the week.
I think this is going to be how you say dope. But yeah, so I guess the first one to hit that I think, what a time to, be reporting on video games or on anything right now is just everything that's sort of going on around Russia's invasion of the Ukraine and how the games industry is reacting to that, which has been, based on what I've seen, pretty much unanimous support of Ukraine, at least from video game companies. Many of them have been either putting out statements, urging people to support Ukrainian citizens and the Ukrainian armed forces. Others have gone so far as to donate large sums of money. And then a couple companies, including CD Projekt, which made The Witcher, Cyberpunk, games like that, have also pulled sales from Russia and Belarus. So yeah, I mean, like, just kind of in general, what do y'all? I mean, it's a huge one. I don't even really know where to start. But like, what do y'all kind of make of this and the way that the games industry has rallied around kind of Ukraine specifically?
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I feel like usually if it's like a political topic, games industry tends to be very like hands off about it, or they're trying or like. But right now, like I was just like CDP, like when I saw CDPR like announce that they were pulling sales from Russia and Belarus, I was like, whoa, CDPR is pulling sales. Like that's like I don't know, it was like really mind blowing when I read it. I was like, I wanted to blog this, but
Yeah,
um,
that's a good point. During like I think that there was like a spate of anti-Asian attacks. I remember I asked CD Projekt Red to comment on that, and they declined immediately. And other game developers took longer or didn't reply, but like they were the ones to reply first, very quickly, to not have a statement.
oh, sorry. That reminded me. Remember when there was like a rallying around Palestine and
Mm,
IGN had this whole like public like blow up over like their like linking of like of aid support to Palestine, and there was like a back and forth like going on. Like, do you remember this? Am I
hmm.
like
Oh yeah, of
okay?
course.
Okay. Yeah, and I was just thinking about how like right now there's not any back and forth on a very like, like of a different invasion. So that's kind of like what I was thinking of immediately while all of this like is unfolding. But also of course, a lot of there's actually quite a lot of there's actually quite a lot of game companies in Eastern Europe in general because there is some like more tech infrastructure that's like from the post-Soviet era. Sorry, I'm like this is like my weirdly niche knowledge from attending too many conferences. So like there's like an and also like there's actually quite a bit of like tech and game developers, especially in like former USSR territories. So it's just like a lot of the support, a lot of the kind of movement going around is from um obviously like Ukraine's neighbors.
Yeah, I'll say that
Yeah.
like I think it's definitely been like we've seen a lot of the discussion around just like how racist some of the coverage has been, in just terms of like this so-called slip ups or whatever, of being like, how could this happen in Ukraine? This is like a civilized country. They don't have war. They don't have human atrocities. And so I think on the one hand, obviously, like you do see that clear double standard where a lot more companies now for I mean for some of these companies this is very close to home. It's much more in their neighborhood, but companies more in general feeling, I guess, cover to speak out on this as opposed to the Palestinian issue, or whether it was Black Lives Matter or the spike in anti-Asian violence. And so there was, I think, there's definitely that element of it. I do still think the video game reaction has been unique, though, in just that um, like, so it's not surprising that Disney might pull the release of stuff, or was it Disney, or was it who HBO pulling Batman? um
Something like that. Yeah.
but on the one hand, like, it's unprecedented sort of for like a game company to do that, and I don't know if Xbox or PlayStation responded, because I know that the vice prime minister had called on them to block users, and people reached out for comment yesterday, and to my
Hmm.
knowledge they didn't comment. And so that's those are bigger platforms, and they, the thing that gaming has historically done is gone into various countries and sort of like uh, augmented the brand to try and appeal to those local audiences. I know there was that blow up a year or two ago with the YouTuber in Brazil for I don't for um, some sort of hate speech or bullying or and harassment that his channel was accused of. And it was basically this sort of thing of like, when there was enough attention on it, Xbox pulled out. And there's that, they have these huge networks of influencers and marketing and everything all over the place. And it's a much more tenuous position for them to be all of a sudden held responsible for, like, you know, what is your position? Like, are you going to do something that could potentially piss off a giant part of your market? So I do think that part of it is still extremely noteworthy, that, CD Projekt Red, which sells a lot in Russia, is willing to, like, basically, potentially anger tons of fans over this, in a way
Hmm.
where, it might not affect the outcome, but it's them wanting to, you know, put out their message in a way that there's a lot more potential downside than there is upside for them.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe I think that somebody from CDPR shared exact stats around that in terms of like number of users in or percentage of users in Russia and Belarus, and I think it was like I think it was like around 5% or something like that. So yeah, I mean significant, but like not overwhelmingly significant, you know. Um,
Yeah. Also, as really quickly, it was HBO and Disney that pulled Batman from Russia.
mhm. But yeah, no, it is interesting. To your point, Ethan, about like kind of some of the I guess like racial overtones of this. Just in terms of like, yeah, it also I think taps into kind of views that are normalized in America versus not, or views that are normalized, I would say, in the West more broadly versus not. Like the idea of like because we, for example, are like pretty closely allied with Israel, saying like that things in Palestine are a great injustice is like more controversial than being like, you know, Russia invading the Ukraine, which or invading Ukraine, which is something that I think pretty much everyone disagrees with. Is like, yeah, you can be like, yeah, that's bad. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it's a matter of prevailing narratives in the West too, in this way that I think becomes very clear when you kind of create that contrast.
Yeah, it's worth noting that like there's like bipartisan support against Russia. So
Yeah, which
Um,
basically never happens. So,
I wanted to shout, I kind of want to mention that I am really embedded in the game developer scene, and I know a couple of like like Iraq diaspora developers who are very like upset. I mean, obviously upset about the fact there is a war, upset about the fact that people are suffering, but also having very like conflicted feelings about how I like we had the Iraq war and people like just did not like there's not as unified opposition to wars that involve like countries outside of Europe, and how like it's like like people like real people are seeing the differences in support and in like and it like we have to talk about it in terms of gaming because this is a gaming stream, but like it's just like people, like real people who like are like affected by like seeing that like this is like an issue that garners a lot more support, even though war atrocities are war atrocities anywhere.
mhm. Right, right. And it's just that we like, yeah, kind of support nations into like first world and beyond, and that ends up coloring people's view of how all of this kind of plays out. And yeah, you're talking about because it is really complicated though, because then also like to your point, real people are being affected in very grave ways right now, and like
Mhm.
to go back to what some of the game studios are doing. Um, there are multiple studios that have operations in Ukraine, and that like in one case, GSC Game World, who's making Stalker 2, has paused development entirely in the name of just
Mhm.
ensuring that their employees are safe, um, and getting them to places that are maybe not quite as dangerous if possible. So I mean, I think it's possible to both examine this through the lens of like this is how a country positioned in the West views this, and these are the flaws in that view, and also like this is a very dire situation, and any sort of
Mhm.
support that people can provide is helpful. Um,
Mhm.
and that like I think the takeaway here is maybe that this is how we should react in the case of all of these different armed conflicts that happen, not just in the case of this one that is surprising to us on the basis that it's happening in a place that is that happens to be predominantly white.
Mhm.
um but yeah, so that's kind of that situation. Obviously, I think it's going to change quite a lot in the coming days because it's an unfolding war zone. There have been a couple other developments that have kind of sprung off of that, in addition to all the donations and people moving their employees, or at least trying to. One is that today Twitch announced a new misinformation policy that is dedicated to. So the idea is it prohibits dedicated misinformation actors, um, which are individuals or propaganda entities whose online presence is dedicated to disseminating misinformation with clear risks of real world harm. Um, so basically, the idea here, to them at least, is to preempt, for example, Russian propaganda. They contend that they don't really have a problem with it right now, but that if it were to become an issue, that if Russian state actors were to try to create a presence on the site, especially now that they have been kind of deplatformed elsewhere, that they would have policy that says like, no, you can't do this. Which I find interesting on a number of levels. For one, because Twitch, like again, contends it doesn't really have huge misinformation issues like other platforms. But also just in that like these platforms tend to be very reactive, right? And so
Mhm.
like they could have easily had a policy like this in place, much sooner. But
Mhm.
now there is, one of the like largest kind of land conflicts and eons occurring, and they're like, by the way, now we have this, so everything's good.
This must be a wild time for you as a Twitch reporter, like the
Hmm.
Wild West suddenly having misinformation standards.
Yeah, I mean, they to be clear and to be fair to them, they have had a misinformation policy for a little bit now. They just updated it so as to target people who like their entire goal is to spread misinformation,
Mhm.
um, which is interesting because they didn't really have clear language around that before. They were a little bit more vague in their terminology, and so like the other thing they're doing here that I actually like, I think I like, is they're delineating this from people who maybe like do spread misinformation, but like once or twice. So maybe
Mhm.
like there's a news streamer who accidentally spread something that is misinformation, and they're like, "Oh crap, I made a mistake," and they try to correct the record and all of this stuff. Like they're trying to do things right. They just it doesn't work out, or somebody pulled the trigger too soon on something they thought was true. Twitch is not going to just ban them for that. They're not going to be like, "Ah, you're off, you're out, sorry." Um, and I think that's probably a better way to handle it overall. Um, but we'll see, because with anything like this, you're ultimately in a position where a very big company with monetary interests above all else is controlling the flow of information and deciding what is good and bad information. And just generally speaking, that's not really who you want to say this is true, this isn't true, because their
Mhm.
interests are not first and foremost aligned with truth; they're aligned with profit. Um, but yeah, we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, I can say a few more details actually on this that I got recently, which is that one thing that I was very curious about when they made this announcement is, does this apply to chat, or is it just like Twitch channels broadcasting what might be considered misinformation or disinformation? And Twitch told me, and this is going to be in a story that I run hopefully tomorrow, that yeah, it does apply to chat. That while they do rely pretty heavily on like users and moderators to identify these things, they're also like working with experts in the field to proactively go after people whose channels are misinformation based, not just in terms of like their active presence streaming, but also in terms of what they put in chat. So that's interesting, because I think that's one of the biggest vectors for misinformation on Twitch, and no one really thinks about it that way because they view it through like this YouTube lens of like, oh, it's just the content. So if you get rid of the content that has misinformation, you're done. And it's like, no, I think the conversations that happen in chat are the biggest misinformation vector on the platform. So it is interesting and good to hear them say, yes, we are looking at that. Anyway, that's my whole thing. I don't know if y'all have thoughts on that. If not, we can just move right along.
I don't know if you. I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it. So is that the
Mhm.
kind of thing where they are relying on people reporting particular instances in a chat, or are they
Mhm.
doing some sort of like machine learning, like search based on a constellation of like words or phrases, or like, or do they just wait until there's like enough public scrutiny on a particular chat and then they go look at it and be like, yeah, you're right, this is bad.
Right. This is the problem, right? In general, I think Twitch's approach is the latter. They are pretty prone to just like waiting for people to report things. Um, and as for how they're doing things proactively, I'm not entirely certain on that front. I know that Twitch is a significantly less automated platform than, like, say, a YouTube or what have you. And so I don't know the extent to which they would employ something like machine learning, or even the extent to which their tech could support that in the way that you're outlining. That said, they do have automated systems in place for detecting like sounds and things like that for the purpose of DMCA claims. So it would not be outside of the scope of their abilities to make something like that happen if they really decided to. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because like when I think that the eternal problem with something like this is when you are trying to monitor for these sorts of things, for bad actors at scale, at a scale of millions, then, yes, hiring more people is generally a good thing, but you can't hire enough people to manually do that. After a
Mhm.
certain point, it just becomes impossible. So, yeah, we'll see what they choose to do. Let's see. Are there any other things pertaining to Russia, Ukraine that I pulled up this week? Oh yeah, no. I think we're transitioning into other stuff, which is Twitch related. Let's see. I don't know how much y'all want to dig into this because it's not necessarily your purview. I just find it interesting in general. So I'll do one more Twitch thing. Is that okay, or do y'all want to move on to another thing?
Okay, we
I
get you're the
think,
Twitch reporter.
yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay. Wow.
I defer to Shannon.
You don't know. About
I
that.
also defer to Shannon.
Thank you, everyone. Well,
Okay.
I think we covered a lot of Twitch so far. We
Fine,
can
fine.
maybe come back
Well,
to
then
it.
let's
There's
jump over
extra
to
time.
this one, which y'all definitely will have opinions on. Bandcamp joining Epic Games, which is a weird way of phrasing that Epic bought Bandcamp. Okay, so this one is, I think, interesting on a lot of levels because Bandcamp was previously, up until this point, an independent music service who kind of made its name on putting artists first. And now suddenly they are owned by a video game conglomerate, which I think would have been unthinkable, or at least not unthinkable, but kind of unprecedented, if not for the fact that Epic has hosted concerts in Fortnite and is obsessed with the metaverse. Um, what are y'all's kind of general feelings on this strange development in a week of strange developments?
Well, good to know that Epic also acquired ArtStation, right? And
Mm,
a bunch of other companies at this point, Mediatonic, which has Fall Guys, which I wrote about back last year. So yeah, Epic has acquired a lot of miscellaneous
Harmonix, too.
companies. Oh yeah, that too. Psionics for Rocket League.
mm,
And then yeah, just like there's a whole flywheel graphic that Matt Ball put out before, and we had him on the show previously talk about the metaverse, about how Epic is trying to build out like all of its different businesses in every aspect. I wonder if any of you have like used Bandcamp or like have thoughts about Bandcamp specifically. But yeah, just to me, it seemed like another one of the many acquisitions that Epic has made so far.
mhm.
I wanted to blog this so bad. I saw the news. I was like, I'm on strike. Why couldn't they have bought Bandcamp last week?
Yeah.
Please time your news like in a way that's convenient for me personally. Anyway, so after my rant, my first thought was, oh my god, somebody please nobody buy itch.io. If anyone buys itch.io, I will be so mad because like to me, like I think of Bandcamp in terms of what itch.io has been for me, which is letting independent artists have more control over how much income they get, because like Spotify pays people like pennies per stream, maybe less
Mhm.
than 1 penny, some kind of really really small figure, that is like basically a lot of musicians, and I know game music people um but game music people, like they basically put their stuff on Spotify because it's like exposure, but it's kind of like I'm not really making much money from this, and it actually like it gives me more money to just simply have people buy my albums or like buy a t-shirt or like buy literally anything other than listening to on Spotify. So Bandcamp has actually helped musicians quite a lot, and
Mhm.
I know this specifically about game musicians again, because I don't really like I can't talk to Mitski or whatever. So
I can weigh in on that part though. I'm in communities for a bunch of like, as a
oh,
white dude
please
in his
do.
30s, you'll not be surprised to learn that I am in communities for a bunch of obscure musicians.
And you've lived in
Um,
New York longer.
but yeah, no, a lot of them like I wouldn't say they rely on Bandcamp necessarily because you can't really rely on
Okay,
making money
that's
off your
yeah,
music at
fair.
all. But like it is their preferred platform that you experience their music on because you can actually spend
Mhm.
direct money on it and help them. And they make way, way, way like they actually make full entire dollars off of album sales from Bandcamp. Whereas, as you were saying, Spotify is a fraction of a cent per listen, which is nothing. Like even
Mhm.
the biggest musicians in the world make basically nothing off Spotify because that's like hypothetical made up money. It's not even real.
Mhm.
It's like, saying, okay, go to the beach. Also, you can only have 1 grain of sand on it. Like, what are you gonna even do with that? Um, but yeah, also I do want to CC inform you very quickly that unfortunately I just purchased itch.io. So
Yeah, I was thinking of itch.io because itch.io is basically the Bandcamp of indie games.
Hmm.
It is where like real. It's actually okay. Sorry, this is becoming itch.io talk because I love itch.io. It is where I started my career as an
Oh,
independent game developer. It is where I got to put like really gay stuff and with like very heavy themes onto a website and sell it for real dollars. And it has paid my credit card monthlies for like a while. So that's kind of like how I relate to like the indie space of like, and these places are so important because they give people who don't have like qualifications like being John Romero or whatever a chance. They give people a chance to like put independent art, and it's so important. And sorry, this is about itch.io now, but like these spaces we have like I like we really need these kind of like experimental websites where people can at least get something, because that's where innovation comes from, that's where creativity flourishes. And I swear to god, if anyone buys itch.io, they are on my like anger list for life. Like nobody buy itch.io, nobody. But like I remember Epic versus Apple lawsuit, like I think like itch.io got a shout out as like an
yeah.
unspeakable
Hmm.
website. I forget it was Epic's lawyers or Apple's lawyers who said
Oh,
that.
I think
But yeah,
okay.
they're like,
I
it's
can
full of
answer this
porn.
because I
Yes,
wrote an
Shannon, go.
article for the Washington Post for this
Mm.
exactly about itch.io. So it was that itch.io is allowed inside Epic Games Store, but like itch.io has like more mature games with like that like kind of maybe like don't follow Epic Games Store's rules exactly. And then Apple was pointing that out, saying, "Oh, look at how many unspeakable games you have
Ah.
on your platform thanks to itch.io." And then itch.io started to tweet out like, "Oh, look at us, we have so many what is that? These games,
Yeah.
and we should do like a unspeakable games jam, to kind of
No,
to show
itch.io
them."
is great because the rest of the internet is clamping down on like any kind of sexual art. Like what
Hmm.
Tumblr banned porn from. I don't know why I did that, but like it just shot its own foot. But Tumblr banned porn. Payment processors are like banning like sex workers from their platform. And there's like so many websites and now like we have to clean it up. We have to get rid of all the sexy stuff because then otherwise payment processors might clamp down on us. We might get into trouble. And so the internet is gradually becoming more and more hostile to any kind of sexuality work. And sometimes even
Hmm.
queer art that is not necessarily sexual get lumped together because queer art is seen as inherently sexual. But itch.io is a haven where you can make flat out like queer pornographic work, put it on there, earn something from it, and it is like it is so important for the preservation of queer games and queer art that I would just literally like my part would just break into 60 pieces if it ever got sold to like large company. Like praying that it continues to have an unspeakable games reputation and that nobody buys it.
Oh, Cece, thanks for your rant. I mean, I
Sorry.
I
also
know, right?
broke
You
the
do some
news.
great rants.
I would
Very
fight
impressive.
for itch.io.
Yeah, no, I actually broke the news about Tumblr banning porn and then like the fallout and all like the different kind of blogs that were not porn that were getting taken down and they had
Hmm.
nowhere to go afterwards. So that's actually something I used to cover as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, itch.io, like I actually saw your game on there and like played it a bunch, which was a good one. And I think I said that to you when I first met you. So yeah, that's yeah, thanks for sharing your many thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
there's
I don't know
one
that
whole
anyone's
sex
trying to
scene in
buy
there.
them, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
no,
I didn't get to that part. But yeah.
um,
Real quick, I'll just say
okay.
I don't quite understand. So what's the play? Like they get a bunch of people who know how to curate music. They get a bunch of people who know how to curate concept art. Like all of these things, I'm like, I don't see like how Epic like funnel. They kind of read to me like the Epic Game Store, where it's like where they're throwing money at things, and it's like one day money will equal Steam, and it's like I don't know.
Right. I mean, this is a thing where, like, I've seen people kind of, talking through analysis of the possible reasons for doing something like this. And people have pointed out that, like, you know, companies like Epic regularly end up with, like, large cash surpluses. And, like, if you hold on to it, it looks bad. And also it gets taxed.
Mm.
If you spend it, then, you can just use that. Like, you have a potential resource you can use later or to sell later.
Yeah.
And so in either case, like, and then on top of that, Epic can pretty easily make the argument that it's worthwhile to buy something like this because they have aspirations for the metaverse. Metaverse involves music. They're already doing concerts. So there are all these things that, like, on paper make sense. even if you get into the particulars and you're like, wait, what?
So is this
Eh,
like when you spend all your runes in Elden Ring before you go fight the boss and then you die?
Bingo.
Okay.
It's literally the same.
Okay,
The
cool.
Yeah,
boss is meta. Um, but yeah, no, I do think though that the comparison that you're drawing, CC, is like a very apt one too. Like in a lot of ways, Bandcamp and itch.io are like they're analogs of each other because they're also both in these kind of scenes or in these industries where like only a few platforms basically control everything now. Those platforms are increasingly
mm,
proprietary and closed off, and those platforms, especially in like the case of things like Steam, give the creators a fairly raw deal. I mean, Steam still gives developers a better deal than Spotify gives musicians, but the point still stands. And in addition, like you were pointing out, all these like fun and weird things that a platform like itch.io can do. Like in reaction, they can be like, let's do a bundle of unspeakable games. And like I guarantee you, Bandcamp, now owned by Epic, could no longer do something like that. Like that's just
mhm.
I doubt Epic would ever approve anything like that, if only because of the direct parallel of the Epic v Apple court case. But in any case, like yeah, so you're in this position where I think the way Bandcamp is presenting this is as though nothing is going to change, because that always behooves these companies that have been purchased to be like, don't worry, we're still going to be the same. And I think it behooves Epic to keep them that way for a while, just because like Epic wants to appear to be the company in support of open platforms and of creators having freedom to do as they wish. But I think the thing to always keep in mind with these sorts of purchases is that big companies' profit motives can change over time,
Yes.
and
Um,
you just end up seeing subsidiaries kind of change too, being forced to.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, every time they say, "Don't worry, nothing will change," something eventually changes over time. It's just
Hmm.
not currently now. And I was just thinking about how currently, Epic actually has a pretty good reputation among game developers because they don't have to worry about breaking even. And it's kind of a devil's bargain because it's like, I mean, you're kind of like feeding the beast, but also like if you don't do this, then you might not survive long enough. Because the way that the indie games model is that you try your darndest to not just break even, but make enough money so that you can survive like the next round of figuring out how to make your next game. And so now, if indie developers get a good enough deal from a major platform holder, then they don't have to think about, oh man, am I gonna break even? Am I gonna, they just sign a deal and then Epic takes care of it money wise. And right now, Epic has still a pretty good, if like pretty like okay, if not outright good reputation with indie developers, and they're still kind of like as far as I've seen, the like relationship has not changed. But it's kind of like, well, when does this change? Like when, because I mean, I mean, like it's just that like it's hard to forecast what their strategy is.
Hmm.
And right now it's like we're not seeing a ton of movement yet. It's hard to see when they will start making movement that will get a lot of people upset. So there's that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it depends on. I would say that big companies, especially, are fundamentally reactive. They kind of often have to be. They have shareholders and things like that. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, they could have the best of intentions, but if they start losing money, or if they start not making as much money as they want to be making, then they will absolutely shift their strategy to change that. In any case, other things. Um, so this is one that's I think particular to some of my areas of coverage, but the Steam Deck is now out, and is a very interesting piece of hardware with a lot of different flaws. I don't know if I know that y'all got a Steam Deck for like the company or for the site, right? But have either
Yes.
of you had a chance to use it?
No.
I think Patricia got our Steam Deck.
Hmm.
Mine is one of those like late Q2.
Dang.
I just straight up didn't get one because I was like, I have a gaming PC. What do I need a Steam Deck for?
Yeah.
Man,
Put in a
Gabe Newell
$5
wants to have a word
deposit.
with you.
Yeah, put in a $5 deposit. I don't even know when they're gonna ship it out, so we'll
Mhm.
see.
Yeah. Well, bad news. They also don't know when they're going to ship it out.
Of
Yeah,
course.
no. So basically, their current their kind of current plan right now is they're going to keep ramping up production, and they're hoping to have right now they say they have tens of thousands already made. They're hoping to hit hundreds of thousands before the year is out. And like in an ideal world, which is not the one that we live in, they would basically anybody would be able to like just order a Steam Deck and have it arrive at their home in a couple days by the end of the year. Obviously, there have been supply chain issues. They are well documented. They are the result of things like COVID-19 and crypto and all of this. And so, yeah, that's holding up sales of the Steam Deck just as it held up sales of things like the Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, everything out there pretty much under the sun that involves chips and tech and all of that.
Gabe Newell can only make them so fast.
He can, and
He's
he
trying
only
his hardest.
personally
Making them-
deliver them so fast
He's making them by hand.
and delivering them.
Artisan
literally.
Steam Decks.
This is real. This is Gabe Newell delivering Steam Decks to people's homes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a promotional stunt,
Just
but
for
it's
show,
pretty
right?
funny.
Yeah.
Most
I
expensive
have to
delivery.
admire this level of dedication to a bit.
You know, personally, like I was not enthusiastic about reserving a Steam Deck when it came out, when like was announced, because like again, this was during a time when like tech shortages were like ongoing. That was kind of like, will I even be interested in one by the time that I can get one? And second of all, I saw what happened to the Steam controller, and I'm like, okay, how long are you gonna support? How long are you gonna support the Steam Deck?
Yeah. Yeah, to be clear to those in the audience who may not be familiar, the Steam controller was a piece of hardware Valve released, gosh, more than almost half a decade ago, maybe more.
Yeah.
There was like a controller oriented around customization, around playing PC games, that kind of a thing. But it never really took off, in part because it was really uncomfortable to hold. And so, yeah, Valve just kind of discontinued support for it pretty quickly. And yeah, I think there's definitely concern around like, will they keep supporting the Steam Deck? But I will say, in their favor and to their credit, the Steam Deck is kind of a product of a lot of hardware iteration they've done, and it's way more comfortable. Like, I mean, it feels like an application of a lot of things they learned from the Steam controller. I'm guessing they'll support it for real, if only because there's significantly more demand for it. And while it is flawed, especially in terms of battery life and compatibility and things like that, I would call it a fundamentally very good device. So I think as long as people keep wanting it and they keep making money off of it, they're not going to suddenly pull the plug.
Yeah, it was worth noting that it was like significantly delayed. I was like in charge of, contacting Valve over and over to see how many copies they could send us. And at first they were like, yeah, we can send you like 2 or 3. And then eventually they were just like, no, here's the one. And yeah, I mean, at this point, they're not going to send extra as far as I know. That's why I put my $5 deposit down, because I don't know when I will ever get a second one, like after the one they mailed over for our coverage. So yeah, I don't actually know if we can get our hands on
And
it, or
also-
it's going to be another like PS5 kind of situation again.
I have to point out too that Gabe Newell did not even deliver ours. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we're really just being treated terribly here. We deserve better.
Betrayal.
Come to my home,
Betray-
Gabe. Come to my home and fight me, and then give me another Steam Deck if I win. But yeah, so Valve is working to resolve some of the issues that the Steam Deck has. They actually released a patch that, like, I guess fixed joystick drift this week. If only Nintendo could do that.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the state of things with that. They don't really know when people are going to be able to get more, and then they're working on compatibility issues. We'll see how that turns out, because actually, to an area of expertise for Ethan, currently, if you try to play Destiny 2 on the Steam Deck, you will get banned.
Yeah, this was pretty well known going in that the Destiny's new anti-cheat software did not work with Proton or whatever. I'm not technical enough to know the ins and outs and all the layered software, but yeah, basically that it was not going to work, and if you try to circumvent and play the game anyway, that's when you will get banned.
Yeah,
which I guess some people consider to be like extremely harsh. Anyone who's been following Destiny and Bungie knows that they do not care. Their game is sacred, and they're not. I honestly, I don't know why you would want to play it on the Steam Deck anyway. But
I mean, look, I played a little bit of Destiny.
This is coming from someone who's tried to play Destiny remote play on the Vita many a time to grind, and especially for people who are already playing on Steam, like the game is superior with a mouse and keyboard.
Oh, definitely,
No,
definitely.
I see
So
your
like,
point. 'Cause I tried to play it on Stadia with like a small phone. I was like, oh man, everything is so tiny, and what do I do?
I will just say that playing on Steam Deck, anything on Steam Deck, while maybe is not like the optimal way to play things, I've spent so much more time playing video games recently because you can just kind of do it wherever, and it's like, oh, wow, this opens a lot of doors.
Dude,
Um,
now
You tried the Nintendo Switch?
have you tried
I
being a
haven't
mobile
the what?
gamer?
Yeah.
Have you tried being a
I
mobile gamer?
No, I'm a PC gamer who happens to be able to do things outside now. It's
Mm.
different. It's a
Mhm.
major distinction. Actually, it's really interesting because when I interviewed Valve, this didn't make it into the piece, but I did ask them about like, the fact that they now have this mobile extension of their store, and like, the way that the Steam store currently functions on like the App Store. If you download Steam onto the App Store, it's pretty limited by design because of the restrictions Valve puts on other stores if they or Valve, Apple puts on other stores if they're on the App Store. And I was like, is the Steam Deck in any way a reaction to that? Are you just like, well, these mobile ecosystems are too constrained. We can't really make money off of our store on their stores. And they were like, no, that wasn't really part of our thinking. And like, on one hand, I'm like, are you sure? But on the other hand, like I kind of believe Valve because they're rolling in money and control their own massive store. So like I can actually believe that a team of people sat down and said, what would be a neat way to play PC games that we don't already have available to us?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like the one store that's taking down the other stores was Epic Game Store saying like we're trying to challenge Valve and their market share, and then we're also trying to challenge Apple and their App Store. Like I think that's the
Mhm.
one that's like been the most vocal. But yeah, I don't know. What they told
Yeah,
you is what they told you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, let's see. Oh, another Gabe Newell nugget from this week. Gabe has been very vocal in interviews about crypto, Bitcoin, NFTs, all of that, um, and notably so because Steam has banned games that involve crypto and NFTs from the store, which is far more than basically any other platform has done on this front. And so yeah, he actually shared a nugget of information about the thinking behind that this week, which is that 50% of transactions were fraudulent when Steam accepted Bitcoin for payments. Um, which I mean, like there's obviously a reputation for crypto being used in scams a lot or for being parts of scams, but like seeing a number like that, right, I think kind of puts it in perspective.
yeah, and I think it makes it less like of an ideological thing and more of like a practical thing. I forget.
Mhm.
I'm blanking on his name. The Greek, I think he was at some point finance minister, previously economist at
Oh,
Steam.
Giannis Farfel. I can't pronounce his
Yes.
name, but yeah,
Um,
yep.
who's like not he's not completely against blockchain in terms of like doing certain tools, but basically is extremely down on crypto
Mhm.
and is like, yeah, this is stupid. This is what Steam was doing. We were doing this with hats like forever, and it's just funny on the one hand for the original like crypto NFT
Right,
store to be like this, no. But like
right.
the fraud thing makes complete sense. But
Mhm.
ideologically, they seem actually very similar.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
See,
I mean, ideologically, they seem similar, and also one could say that, like, if a bunch of crypto-related marketplaces popped up on Steam, that could take away from the business that the Steam marketplace does. And to like, let us not let us not pretend that Valve is like ideologically pure here. They have a monetary motivation.
yeah, and also, as someone who does a lot of NFT coverage for Kotaku, unfortunately, I have so many spam emails on NFTs now.
Well,
But
yeah, but you're
anyway,
just dying to like write NFT blogs right now, right? That's the main
I
reason you want to go back
no,
to work.
actually this strike has freed me from NFT blogs. It's like the only good things coming out here. Anyway, so as someone who has unfortunately knowledge of NFTs and the crypto ecosystem and gaming, I just find it so fascinating how a platform's acceptance of crypto and NFTs has kind of become a litmus test to are you receptive to new technology? Are you a Luddite? And it's just like I mean, it's just interesting because, like, in order for a company to look like they accept technology, even if the people have like reservations about crypto, like saying outright that we don't support NFT can be seen as like we don't, we're not open to new technology. So it's just like really interesting to see how it's being like framed here.
That's a
Yeah,
really good point.
that was interesting to see at Dice at Vegas last week as well. Just like there are some people who were whispering to me, I hate NFTs, but like they were looking around just to make sure that nobody overheard them. And I
Yeah.
was like, why are you whispering? I mean, but yeah,
Yeah.
it seems to be they're afraid of like other companies and
Yeah, no, definitely. I interviewed people about NFTs for Kotaku, and it was really interesting how like, like trying to remember actually. Sorry, I'm just like thinking about which ones parts are off the record, and I'm thinking maybe we could just play it safe and not say
yeah,
it.
we can
But
move on.
yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry. I had such an interesting thought, but I was like, actually, no, I don't remember. This was okay, so never mind.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's fine. We can put a pin in it.
Wow, a real shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, let's see. I think that regardless of his motivations, the quote from Gabe Newell here is a decent one. He said, "There's a difference between what it should be and what it really is currently in the real world, and that's sort of where we're at with blockchain-based NFT stuff. So much of it was ripping customers off, and we were like, yeah, that's not what we want to do. We don't want to enable screwing large numbers of our customers over. So that's what drove the decision. There's nothing inherently there's nothing inherently about distributed ledgers that makes them problematic. It's just so far that's almost always what our experience has been." So yeah. Oh, here's let's see.
Famously,
uh,
Valve, the company who released a card game based around an auction house.
yes. Yeah. I mean, again, if anybody loves like new forms of currency, parentheses that they control, it's Valve, but
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah, apparently like bots farming trading cards from Steam is like its whole thing. And every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it is super wild. Then also Valve has like been the canary in the coal mine for a lot of this in many ways because they also had, like in 2017 thereabouts, there was like all of the CS:GO like skin gambling stuff, which turned out to be
Oh,
tons of scams, to the point where like Valve was getting investigated and like getting called out by every organization under the sun, so they had
they
to like
got
shut it down.
sued.
But before that, they were down to just look the other way, which again, it makes all of this conspicuous. Is all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I
But I
wrote
mean, you
up
could also say that this is them applying lessons they've learned. So,
Yeah, I actually wrote up the on my Kotaku blog about the last lawsuit of the CS:GO skin gambling thing.
mhm,
Um and it was really shady. I'm not gonna lie. It was like
mhm,
Valve's lawsuits and arguments were like, oh, it's okay if kids are like buying these skins to do skin gambling because they signed away their rights to litigate Valve when it was a bunch of like clearly dodging responsibility legalese. And then the
mhm,
parents sued, and then they were like, well, the parents aren't the ones using Steam, so therefore we can't be sued. So like after seeing that lawsuit, I was just like, wow, this is like I mean like obviously like I'm inherently a little bit suspicious at
mhm.
like large companies, but like after seeing that, I was like, wow, this is
And then Gabe
so like snake oil salesman stuff going on here.
hand delivered a Steam Deck to that family.
And they're like, "Thank you, Father Gabe, all is forgiven." Yeah, I know. Also, Ryui in chat just said, "I hate it when crypto nerds claim people aren't receptive to new technology. Bitcoin was created in 2009. Some of us grew up hearing about this stuff." So, fair point. Um, all right, now it's time for the final section of this show, in which I just show everybody really dumb stuff I found. Um,
So
so
basically, like any other interactions I have with you.
exactly. Yeah, it's like bringing the experience of being my friend to a larger audience.
The
um,
horror.
this week's theme is entirely Elden Ring.
Thank you. I
Yep.
was waiting for this.
Yeah. So first off, there's already a streamer who has wired up Twitch plays Elden Ring. It is about as disastrous as you would imagine. They have it
Ooh,
set
yeah.
so that there are commands people, because basically this person's doing a subathon. So what they do is like they play Elden Ring themselves during the day, and they go to sleep and let their chat play Elden Ring. And so they like have all these commands they can enter into chat, like Twitch plays Pokemon from back in the day,
Mhm.
but with an incredibly hard game in which every wrong move can mean instant death.
Wow.
Anyway, here they are just running into a wall. Got how you expect from 600 people simultaneously trying to control one dude.
That's basically how I play. So.
But yeah, no, sorry, wait, this is the wrong video. This is just Ethan playing Elden Ring. I got it.
Well, he
Okay,
just
I've been to
like
this
healed
location.
for no reason.
Yeah, no, this is actually, yeah, so there are a bunch of enemies right in the middle here that if they, yep, this is a bad idea. They're gonna die. Well, actually, they're doing a good job of sneaking. This is
Honestly,
impressive.
this is a great idea. I need someone to like play this game for me.
Yeah, no, exactly,
Do you have any
right?
takers here? No.
Yeah, we should get our entire chat next week to just play it for you. That's the new method.
Yeah.
So I like that that's already happening. Let's see. Speaking of Twitch pertaining to Elden Ring, somebody finally figured out a good solution to George R. R. Martin's present problems, which is that instead of finishing his book, he can just get on Twitch and let people in the chat ask questions about what happens. And you know, frankly, I don't hate it.
At least you get some kind of content from him, right? That's what you're looking for in the end.
Right. And then, yeah, for the ebullition of people in the audience, George R. R. Martin contributed world building to Elden Ring. He was not very actively involved in development. I don't think he's touched it in like 4 years.
At least he took a photo and promoted it, so he remembered it existed, you know?
He did. Man, look at this guy. He's not writing a book right now, and he has no pages, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Alright, do you have any pages, Nathan?
I actually do. I have more pages than George R. R. Martin. I have
Wow.
submitted 2 entire chapters to my editor. And
just a
now that
race between
Omicron is
you
receded,
and-
I'm working on more. So
It's a race between you and George R. R. Martin to see who finishes their book first.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is. It really, wow.
Yeah, him explaining
Nathan!
the ending on Twitch could be your final chapter.
Yes, I love it. Okay, I'm in.
Nathan, you could sell more copies than George R. R. Martin if you just finished, have something
If I
published.
literally just release anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. When I put out my book, I'm just gonna like, then you know there'll be a press release, and my only quote will be "Take that, George." every like book tour stop, I'll just be like, yeah. So George R. R. Martin can't. He's got nothing on me. I put out a book. He didn't.
We should place bets on the audience and everywhere else on who will finish their book first. Obviously without money because we're not gambling here.
Oh yeah, no, of course not. We can do some crypto gambling though, or some Counter-Strike skin gambling, whatever kind of suits your interests.
Can you get reimbursed for crypto gambling?
Arguably, yes.
If it's in the name of a story, no. Still no, probably. I'm guessing that feels illegal in a way that probably would just make it actually legal.
I think you might not have been here, Nathan, but I think Gene spent a lot of money on Pokemon Unite. And he was reimbursed for that. Yeah.
Research.
But I mean, is that gambling? Does it count? Is it legally gambling?
It wasn't gambling, no. It was just buying skins and cool things. Oh, rolls? I don't know what you buy in Pokemon Unite, but
you can't buy rolls. You have to earn them, and I know this because I unfortunately started playing Pokemon Unite.
Wow, Washington Post Gaming, how dare you? There's a poll in our chat right now. Yes. Who finishes their book first? Nathan Grayson and George R. R. Martin.
Thank you, chat. Thank you.
I gotta vote for my old buddy George.
Okay,
I voted for George. I think I'm the only person who voted for George.
Oh, you're in the lead right now.
I am for now. Also, it is funny that in chat Ryu said, "Did you see somebody made a Ring Fit mod for Elden Ring?" I absolutely did. It's the next thing.
Oh
wow! So somebody managed to beat the first boss.
Your video, your link.
Yeah, they managed to beat the first boss on the first try using the Ring Fit mod.
Oh my god!
Yeah. It's great too. I love that he's like running to move.
You know, I've seen someone play. I think I once wrote a blog about someone playing Call of Duty with like a drum set, and also later like,
Sorry,
he was jog so much.
Yeah, no, he was like first try. Oh my god, I'm tired. Man, amazing what people can do.
I can't even beat the first boss with normal controls.
Oh, like nobody can. The first boss is like the way that I've seen it conveyed is everyone treats the first boss as like the game's biggest skill check. Basically, if you can beat the first boss, the game is like, all right, you're prepared for everything else. But if not, then it's like, maybe it'd be better if you just explore.
I'm about to start the game over again on PC. I've been playing on PS5. I'm gonna start it over on PC so I can play it while I'm in South by and at GDC, and
Wow.
I will try to catch
So
up so
you're,
well.
yeah, you really seem to be very into this game that you hate.
No comment. We can
Mm.
move on from that.
Interesting. So let's see, the most
Oh,
important the most important question surrounding the game has also finally been answered. You can't pet the dog. You super cannot pet the dog.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
oh my god.
He died.
Yeah, regrettable. I'm gonna say though, I'm still gonna try to pet this dog. I shared this with with a group chat that I'm in, and they're like, well, maybe this person just didn't grind enough to pet the dog, and I was like, I will grind for 2,000 hours to pet this dog.
They have to come
Okay,
from the
I have a
back.
confession. I have an Elden Ring confession.
Yeah.
So this is my first FromSoft game, so I didn't know
mine
what the
too,
heck
mine
to
too.
surprise to expect. And so when it said, like, I was like looking around, oh, let these little messages, and I was like, oh, these are tooltips, and I didn't really understand where they came from. I was like, very funny tooltips. And so I saw one that said,
You didn't
I,
know
wa-
they
I,
were
s-
written.
I saw one that was like, jump off here, and I was like, oh, that's a ledge, and I was like, you know what? Why not? I jumped off and I died. I was like, what the heck? And then I found a different ledge. There were blood stains all around it. I was like, let's jump here, and I was like,
Wait.
the first one. And then I was like, well, I'll jump. Why not? I died
This is
again.
so
Okay.
funny because listen, I've been playing this game in offline mode because I didn't want to pay Sony $60, so I didn't have a
Okay.
subscription to the online mode, so I couldn't get any of these tips. So I've been walking around like not knowing how to do anything as a wretch, and I had to start over because that was like as a naked person with no power at all. So I started over with like actual gear, and I've just been so I had the opposite experience where I like don't know anything, and finally I enabled multiplayer mode and I can like find treasure chests and dungeons now. But okay, what? Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mention all of this, CC, because I did know that, right? I pulled up the screenshot because it's part of a story. Um, I did know what you're talking about. The messages on the ground are written by other players. And I found this one and thought it was really funny because it's like the Elden Ring is ahead and you're staring over a cliff. They're like, jump off the cliff to get the Elden Ring. Obviously fake, but I thought it was a good joke. And then I tried to cancel out of that message to walk away, and instead I hit the B button and ran off the cliff.
Did you find the Elden Ring? Did you find it?
Yeah, I beat the game immediately. Yeah.
Oh, it's a Y button. Oh,
Yeah.
to close. Okay, well, there are a lot
Yeah,
of
okay, yeah, but I intentionally jumped off the cliff twice thinking it was something.
Oh, yeah, no, to be clear, yours is worse. Like, I mean,
Okay.
mine is embarrassing, but yours is like devastating. No, I'm joking.
No, okay, I tweeted about this. I alluded to it, but basically, at the beginning of the game, like the first minute, I like walked by a cliff, and then I continued to walk, and then my character just fell off the cliff before there's any player messages or anything that goes on in the game, and then I just died like within like 20 seconds of playing this game. I like set a new record for how quickly I died. So afterwards, like there's a tutorial where you have to jump off a cliff again to get to the tutorial. I was like, nah, I don't
But
believe this
yeah,
guy at all. He says take the plunge. I'm like, I'm gonna go the other way, and so I missed the tutorial because I didn't believe him.
I mean,
I
that's
jumped
one of
off the tutorial, so I got
Okay,
the.
okay, at least you did that.
I just see a
Good for
place and I
you.
jump.
All right.
Man,
Well,
that's fair. The game as the first lesson it tries to teach you is to do that because the tutorial's literally in a hole in the ground. It is one of the trolliest bits of game design I have seen in my life. That as you enter the actual like game world, to get to the tutorial, you jump off a cliff into a hole in the ground, and to just start the game without the tutorial, there you like go up a pair of well lit stairs with like a big nice tree next to them that's like also glowing. It's like one of these is the correct option, the other one's the wrong option, and the tutorial is the one that like the visuals clearly tell you is wrong and that you should not do because you might die. It's like who does that? Why do they do that? It's just to laugh at you. The entire purpose of the game is to laugh at you. Yeah. Ryu says, I saw a thread of a ton of people saying they didn't realize that was the tutorial, which
no,
is
yeah,
amazing.
because it seems like they're lying. Anyway, well,
Mm-hmm.
I
it's
experienced
fine.
the tutorial because I love jumping off places.
I like quit my game, made a new game as a samurai, and then now I've done the tutorial. So it all worked out for me in the end.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking of starting the game or restarting the game, it's finally time to end on one last bit of Elden Ring beauty.
Oh,
Just
wait, we have
something
to
that
reveal the vote. Okay, the vote. Who finishes their book first?
50. It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. People do not have a lot of faith in me.
I feel like that's a
Fair.
lot of faith in you, Nathan. That's at least 50% of the chat having faith in you.
Yeah, compared
That's
to
too
George
much
R. R.
faith.
Martin, the poster child for never finishing his book.
Nathan, I read your roast. I read your Kotaku roast. I know
Oh
you're
my
not a
God.
finisher.
Oh, it's still
This is
following you.
unfair. How dare you bring up what is
Classic.
now ancient history?
Classic Nathan. Turn in the draft a week late and then be like, "Why isn't this edited yet?"
Yeah.
Why
Well,
isn't it edited?
Please put it up.
I'm better now. I turn in the draft 2 days late, and I wait an hour to ask why is it, or I wait a number of hours to ask why it hasn't been edited yet, because our publishing process is slower. So I've grown a lot as a person. Definitely just my circumstances. It's not my circumstances that changed, it's me. But anyway, with all of that said, the most important thing this week, the Elden Ring character creator contains hidden depths that you
Oh,
can't actually. You need to do some data mining to get this stuff. But
saw this.
if you really want to, you can get a little wacky with the faces. See,
Okay, never mind. I didn't see this.
yeah,
one.
it's curious to find out how similar it is to its predecessors, and there's one way to find out. In Bloodborne, you introduce hidden facial deformation sliders, which
Oh
can't be
my
accessed by the
God.
player.
Wild.
Yeah, so this is from Bloodborne, one of the many predecessors of these games. These sliders affect the symmetry of a character's face, were used to present side effects of a narrative thing. The hidden sliders remained in Dark Souls 3, though no NPC
Oh,
used them. So I
no.
decided to check Elden Ring, and yep, they're in there, and they're beautiful. This is maximum face. We are seeing the max level of face. This is the most powerful face in the game.
My God. I thought I messed up the face really good, and now there's the.
Yeah, no. You didn't even get close to the majesty.
Oh my
It's
God.
honestly not that different from max face value in Dark Souls 3.
Okay, well, if this person played a samurai, you still can't see their face, and other classes too.
I
so
like that
it'll be
his
fine.
nose and chin create another mouth. That they jut out in such a way where that could like be a beak that could close on its own.
Is that does that explain like why the other characters in the game also look kind of like that?
Well, I mean, it's just like a weird world.
Hmm.
Wow, and then an ad for our rival, the New York Times. No,
Wait, quick!
I have to replay the video.
Close the
Stop
screen.
it. There we go. Okay,
Why did you play?
Because I wanted to get back to the video because I have to.
The video's not over.
No. I just want to. There we go. This is the image that I want the stream to end on.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no,
thanks everyone for joining us. I know it was hard. I appreciate your valiant effort.
The selfie of me. That's a picture of me that I took at a party recently. It's all a trick.
Oh my God, Elise with the roast. Thank you, Elise, in the chat. I really appreciate that.
No way. I'm looking at against my better instincts. Launches editors. Big Nathan, you think you can put a picture of yourself up and we wouldn't? There we go. See. Okay, we're on the same page at least. I've been owned in real time.
All right. Well, guess that's our show. Thank you.
Yeah, that is our show for the week. For everybody's, I think everybody already knows this by now, but just to reinforce it, we do this every week at 4 p.m. ET. So we'll be back next week with another installment of this show where we'll go over that week's news. We also have a gameplay stream every Friday, most Fridays, whatever. Also 4 p.m. ET. I never know what we're doing on it. What are we doing this week? Are we doing one?
We may or may not. If we do, it'll be Elden Ring or Lost Ark. Stay tuned.
Okay. Yeah, so we might be playing a game tomorrow. Who knows? In the meantime, I would love to extend a gracious thanks to our guests who stuck around for the whole thing, which I think has never actually happened on this show. So thank you so much.
A new one. Although Sisi, one time you did do this like back and forth news thing with me, so thanks for coming on again for doing that.
Simpler times when I was not on strike.
Oh.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
With that in mind, do y'all have anything that you would like to plug or to, mention that you're working on? Obviously, it's only so much you can do in the moment, but if there's anything else you'd like to put, like your SoundCloud or whatever, go for it.
Like your freelance work.
Yeah, it's gmgunion.com.
Can we get a link in chat to gmgunion.com? But yeah, with all of that said, I think that we are taking off for the week. So thanks to everybody who tuned in. Oh yeah, thank you, really. Thank you for hosting this. I learned a lot. I'll try to stop by for future ones. Great, fantastic.
Yes,
Thank you. We
thank
gained a
you.
viewer.
Thanks everyone, our old fans, our new fans.
And everyone in
Please
between.
like,
And our
subscribe, tap the
enemies.
bell. Yeah, our bitter
Especially our enemies.
rivals. Our nemesis.
Thank you, Gabe Newell and George R. R. Martin. I want you to both come to my house and fight me, and then finish your things. Or give me a Steam Deck, whatever.
All the giants in Elden Ring. Thanks to them for
special
killing me
thanks
so
to
many
them.
times.
I love
great.
those guys.
They're
like family to me.
The game. Okay, well.
In any case, prolonged goodbye over. We're out.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.